Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Worthit podcast. Hello there, JD.
Hi, Tom.
How are you doing on this fine Wednesday?
You know, I got out of bed, I had a shower, and now I'm back in bed for the podcast. So I'm
Amazing.
pretty good.
Perfect. So you're well and truly set up and ready to record.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So
It's about as prepared as I'm going to get.
yeah. So there was something that actually came about over the past couple of days that I really wanted to talk about in the podcast because I feel like it's I guess a really important part of any filmmaking process, and I wanted to discuss it because I wanted to know your opinion, as well as just get a frustration off my chest and something that really I guess it highlights the overall look, feel aspect of your entire project, and that is the sound design that you use within each video, and most importantly, or specifically for that matter, what songs do you choose for what particular video or film that you make, and why? Is there a particular genre that you go for? Is there a particular style of music that you like to adhere to whenever you make any films? Do you change it up per series or video to video? I want to know what kind of music that you, JD, yourself like to listen to, and whether that also is shown within the videos that you like to write and develop.
No, it is not. I can say that right now. Because it's like...
Go on, explain.
Okay, so let's look at an example. Let's say Interview. Music we used for that was somber in most parts. It was high-strung, but it was also more orientated towards, like, say, an orchestra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or synthetic. And now you look at the music that I like, where it's either heavy metal or country music, and it's very different on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
immediately
was that a choice by yourself? Did you choose to make or to have that particular style of music in the film?
Yes and no, because I remember our editor suggested this, and I was immediately on board going, yeah, no, I want that as well. It was a good idea.
Yeah, because I feel like cinematics and certain particular scenes need specific styles of music, otherwise they just sound weird. Like, you don't want to be like playing any like banjo music while somebody's dying on the floor, do you? It's not gonna sound right at all. Whereas, you know, it's a very sad violin, some nice gentle piano, something like that, maybe a little bit better, or maybe no music at all. Sometimes, you know, the art of using silence really has a massive impact and effect on scenes.
Yeah, like, you need to pick and choose what fits the scene, not even the film, but like scene to scene. Because like, go watch Star Wars, go watch Darth Vader say I am your father, and just play a ukulele in the background, see how the mood changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it you know, film to film, project to project, no matter what, you always have to, or at least I feel personally anyway, that you always have to write your music as well as writing your story too.
Yeah.
Because it has such a massive impact, it has such a big weight on the whole project that, you know, the score really does affect it overall.
It does. Like you say, you got to pick it spot to spot, film to film, or scene to scene in some cases. Just at the same time. Oh, sorry, no, go on.
No, after you, please.
I was just gonna say, like, because I say scene to scene, but then there are films out there that will change the music, which changes the scene. It'll change the theme, but they change it too vastly. It's weird having a very comic and happy, light-hearted scene in a hard-hitting drama, like when those two scenes are next to each other, and it feels out of place, and it feels silly a lot of the time as well. So you got to really pick your battles.
Yeah, and sometimes like artists, depending on what kind of project it is, sometimes even write scores that they want the audience to remember. It's like designing a good character. You always want people to cosplay your specific character in some way, shape or form. If you make a good enough score, you make a good enough soundtrack for a film, people are going to want to listen to it over and over again. So you're not just making music for your film, you're also making music to maybe potentially even utilize afterwards and post film release as such. So even on the smallest of videos, whether it's like a little tiny video clip, like a 5-second video clip that you quickly cut together and thrown onto Facebook, all the way through to your massive feature-length films and documentaries, you know, music and sound design is absolutely key. Do you personally know the difference between sound design and music, JD? Or
No, not at all. It is not my field of expertise.
okay, so sound design is the element of I guess the audio that you put into a scene in particular, and music obviously clearly is musical instruments, any kind of score, any kind of background music that's not actually there. So sound design is something that's physically there in front of you in the scene. So maybe like a car driving past or a door slamming in the background. That is sound design that's present for the viewer and for the person on on the set at the time. Then the music and the score is something that is they've got specific names. I can't remember what they're called. There is specific audio like names as such that people use to describe sound. That is that is it. Is it? Yes, diegetic and non-diegetic music. That's what it's called.
I'm
diegetic.
I'm glad I helped you in that scenario.
Yeah, I was trying to think about it. So diegetic sounds are something that is actually physically there, and non-diegetic sounds are sounds that aren't physically there at the time, but they're implied. You know, like a big bang in a horror film. It's not there really. People can't hear the big like drum roll or big crash of the cymbals when somebody comes around the corner, because there's not a massive musical orchestra stood behind Jason when he's smashing down a door or anything. But
that'd be pretty great though.
It would be absolutely hilarious. There's a really good scene in The Godfather that highlights that. There's a complete silence. There's no non-diegetic sound at all. It's just diegetic sound. It's when I can't remember, the main character walks into the kitchen. He's on his first hit, and he's like really tensely loading his gun and clicking it back. And then the train, subway station underneath, the train comes by and makes him jump and stuff like that. And it's amazingly beautifully sound designed. And there's certain types of films that heavily rely more on sound design than others. Like your World War II films really massively heavily rely on these big cracking gun sounds and massive explosions and stuff like that to navigate you through a narrative. Whereas, you look at your modern day horrors and they're more heavily relied on non-diegetic music, like your crazy scores.
Somewhere in the room.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, JD, a question. Whenever you were making, or directing for that matter, interview, were there specific sounds that you wanted to keep in, wanted to take out? Was there anything that did you notice as such, or was it just all there?
There were certain sounds that we played with during the editing process that, like I say, we thought, okay, shot to shot, there were sounds that felt like they should be there. But when we started putting them next to each other and we saw that the mood really shifts and it shifted too much, we ended up deciding we need a more focused idea. That's why the brilliant Alex Gordon, now our editor, sat down and said, well, what if I found a score that would work with a good majority of it? I said, that's brilliant, thank you. And he worked very hard on it to make it what it was.
Absolutely. I always feel that student projects especially always lack something whenever they make their films, and that is the sound design and the score. Because sound in general is so important. Like, for example, even something silly as this podcast right now. If you were listening to this podcast and the microphones sounded terrible and it was echoey or it was out of sync or something like that, you'd turn it off instantly because that's not what you want to watch. Yeah. If this was a video-based podcast, but the sound was still the same as I just described, you still wouldn't want to watch it. You'd still turn it off because it sounds terrible. Sound is so important. It instantly turns the brain on or off whenever watching a video. Yeah. Our lecturers always said that sound is 80% of your project. And if you don't have sound, don't even bother.
I wouldn't say 80, but it's easily a very large chunk of it.
Yeah, that's true. Because at the same time, when we made EXN, it didn't really contain any talking, didn't have any lines or anything like that. They had some sound design that was put in post. So, for example, the water flowing, the rain falling, stuff like that, wind. The score as well, of course, clearly. That was all post-production put in afterwards. We didn't use any sound from the day at all, apart from obviously Steve speaking at the very beginning and halfway through. But the rest of it was all post-production audio, which I've always found the sound process so interesting anyway. Working in Foley and looking at how and which they they tinker with some very small parts that don't seem that important at the time, but when you actually blow it up into the biggest project, you can see how much of a difference it actually makes. It's like any kind of editing, really. If you notice the edit, then they've done a good job.
Yeah, it is funny because as a kid, I didn't understand like what noises could be heard or couldn't be heard. So it was like watching horror films at a young age, and you hear the noises because you can hear the killer. He's getting closer, but your character's just stood there, completely oblivious. And you're like, can you not hear this? He's there.
Yeah.
I can hear his footsteps. Move.
It's great. It's great. Your proximity sound was slightly off.
Oh, sorry.
So basically, whenever we're right, I'm gonna even talk about video games here.
Ooh.
Because how important is sound in the video game?
Oh, yeah. No, that is easily at least 50% of the game.
Yeah, 100%. Because say for example you're playing like a multiplayer game like Call of Duty, for example, right? And you can hear somebody running past you, but they're going on your left ear, and they're actually over on the right side. You can't play a game without good audio ever.
I have
Otherwise,
won matches based on sound.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I've done like the Daredevil thing of echolocate. Oh, that's where the person is. I now can win the game because of this. Audio is important as anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about how people view their stuff, how people view the projects on their devices and stuff like that, sometimes not everyone has £200-300 headsets, and people don't have thousands of pounds worth of an audio system to listen to the crispest sound possible. And you're not always in the cinema watching a film. Sometimes you're looking at films on your phone, and therefore sound design doesn't matter as much. I always find it very frustrating whenever I put in a specific sound design element. I think that sounds so cool when I'm listening to it on my £250 headphones, and then I play it back on phone, you can't hear it at all. It's always the most disappointing thing. Honestly, like some bits, they make the whole picture, don't they? And you need to make it if you can hear it and it sounds great on the best system possible, it's gonna sound amazing on the worst system possible as well.
Yeah,
always. So I guess in general, when we're talking from video games to animation to documentary to films, every part of sound design is important in every single process. Obviously, they take steps to do it differently. So I'd say animation and video games are very similar in that sense. And then on the flip side of things, documentary and short films are also very similar in how we approach sound design. Because when we look at video games and animation, they're all designed from the ground up. So every element and every different sound is all imported. It's not recorded on a microphone in any way whilst you're there filming. Whereas obviously documentary, if you're like we were stood on the top of a hill in Llandudno, if we're taking in all of the audio around us, that's most of the work done audio wise. We just had to add some little bits and maybe edit the audio slightly to make it sound crisper.
Just real quick on a side note, why did you point Llandudno of all places?
Oh, because we shot an episode there. That's what. Yeah.
Oh.
I was just referencing when we stood on top of the hill in London.
Oh, I grew up there as a kid.
Yeah, we did the Great Orme as an episode. I think it was episode 3 of Exploration Nation. That was honestly the best day of filming I've ever had.
Shout out to
aside from Snowdon. Yeah, shout out to your hometown. Yeah, indeed. It was a good episode, that one. The weather was stunning for it as well. We had 2 cameras and amazing audio. What a day that was.
One of the best beaches in the UK.
Yeah, that's true. We used to go there as a kid all the time.
Anyway,
I
was just curious why you brought that one up as an example.
Yeah, indeed. So audio-wise, let's talk about audio at Worthit. So the audio that we use in particular, because it's quite important sometimes to discuss the kit that we use too, because sometimes we have different ways and means of recording stuff, and sometimes we do stuff differently, and sometimes we do stuff generically like everybody else does. So at the podcast currently right now, I'm recording on a Blue Snowball microphone. So are you, JD, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I obviously I use Audacity to record my stuff, and not Audacity, so I use Adobe Audition, and JD use Audacity.
I'm the one who's on Audacity.
So I edit all my sound before I send it off to Alex, the editor, and then he edits all the stuff on After Effects, and then exports it out as video, and that's how it goes up to YouTube, and or exports audio version as well, and that's how that goes up to like the likes of Spotify and stuff. I've always used the Blue Snowball back when I did like Call of Duty commentaries and YouTube videos and stuff like that when I was younger. I used the Blue Snowball then, and I've always stuck to my guns. If it works, if it's not broke, then don't fix it.
Yeah.
So it works absolutely fine for me. I have no reason to upgrade right now, unless I wanted a more comfortable setup or a more secure setup.
Unless
I think when we start to
polite investors would like to give us a nice, handsome amount of money for a recording studio, just
Yeah,
saying,
that's it,
though,
yeah.
Chief.
Yeah, that's it. Not an ad, totally. So when we actually go to studio, we're going to be recording our stuff differently. We are going to obviously go to the XLR input from the mics that we have in there, so it's all set up and ready to go. We can move stuff around and sit down and make ourselves comfortable and stuff like that. And that's recorded on a Tascam DR60, and then that obviously goes on to an SD card, gets uploaded straight to Alex to then edit again. And when we're out and about, when we're shooting our content, I think it depends on what kind of setting we're in. That will depend on what kind of kit that we use. Because if we want to go all guns blazing and we've got full permission to make a short film, we're going to take out our boom pole and our Rode shotgun microphone and the Tascam and all of the audio kit we can take out to make it the best it can be. Whereas if we've not got permission, or we're just making a shorter video, or we're making the XN and are out and about and we're on the move, then sometimes it's better to condense down and use still good quality microphones, but at the same time use microphones that are smaller and more portable. So at the moment, when we shot Exploration Nation Season 1, we used lavalier mics, so lapel mics, the ones that clip on to shirts and stuff. We had a wireless converter, so went to a Sennheiser converter into a Sennheiser receiver, and that just plugs straight into our Tascam instead. So therefore we could roam. They could be up to, I think it's like 100 meters away from us without it breaking up or anything like that. And it still sounded good. There's actually a shot on the Great Orm episode where John Mountford is he's walking up like about 50 meters behind them up the hill with his hat on and his head down, eating some crisps. And not obviously he doesn't have it in his hand. He's got the recorder in his bag behind him because he needed to stay close. And it doesn't pick up at all. I know it's John, but if you're looking at it from like a viewer perspective, you can't actually tell he's part of the crew in any way. He's just a normal passerby walking past. It's brilliant, and it's a super wide shot that tracks him up the hill. And you can see John walking just like obviously 50 meters behind. It's really funny. So we used that for the shoot, and we also had a backup microphone. We had the shotgun microphone as backup, which is useful to have as well, just in case batteries died or whatever. And that's something that I really need to highlight as well. It's so important to bring not only spare pairs of batteries, but spare microphones too, just in case.
How many times while filming have we sat and just silently cried because we haven't had enough batteries on a day?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important to have the capability to carry on recording, or at least use a backup, because you don't want to go back out to set and do it all over again. That's the worst thing, isn't it? You get a really good take and the audio's butchered.
Yeah.
Oh man. So we have
we had that in the bloopers for Ghostly X, didn't we? Where we had like a good take going and a cop car went past with the sirens on.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was and then the buses as well. We kept getting buses going past us all the time.
God.
Yeah.
Go watch the Ghostly X bloopers for a handful of how difficult this is.
So we have a line into the microphone always. So we have a Rode Video Mic Go attached to our camera all the time, recording extra audio just in case we have a mic failure. Because sometimes it's very easy for a cable to break or for it not to be plugged in properly or something like that. And it'll have this horrible whining, hissing sound, which sounds terrible and not nice at all.
It's the same with cameras, you know. Yes, you've got your main camera taking the angle you want, but if you could have another camera nearby taking a different angle, that's great because you can get it all in one go.
Yeah. I feel like recording audio is harder than recording video because you can always check via the LCD monitor whether you're in focus, whether you're white or not, whether your gain's right and all that jazz. But
yeah,
when you go to recording on the Tascam, trying to get those levels perfect or trying not to be too quiet or too loud it's so tough. It's so tough to get right.
Not only that, but like if you ever want to look over your work, you have to wait until you've finished an entire take. Because like I've seen on the camera when you're recording, you've got like meters, wavelengths, all kinds of things on the screen as you're recording. Whereas with audio, I don't know if it's a good recording until after it's finished recording and I play it back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So it is really tough, and hats off to the people who actually do it right first time and get it really, really crisp and clean. So audio, man. Audio.
As I find myself saying repeatedly, God bless anyone else's department because I don't know how to do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that us done for the day then?
So yeah, I think we're actually coming towards the end of today's podcast. I really do hope you enjoyed listening to us ramble on about audio for ages. Because after all, it is vitally important in any project. But guys, if you did enjoy this show and you are enjoying the show in general, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more content. Check out the top left-hand corner of the page. That'll give you a link to our latest video or a video recommended for you. And in the bottom left-hand corner of the page, have a little look out for our playlist too. Our podcast playlist has, I think, around about 12, 13, 14, 15 episodes, maybe, something like that, worth of a podcast. Who knows? Who knows the number? But yes, and if you want to check out our channel, be sure you do, because we have so much more content available, whether that be short films, documentaries, any little tiny bits of animation, and of course also behind the scenes content and tutorials. Also have a look at our Twitter, Facebook, all that jazz. They'll all be down in the description below as a little link. So yeah, guys, thank you very much, JD, for coming along today.
Thank you for having me as always.
No problem, and I will speak to you all in the next one. Bye bye.